Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Norma Silva, principal of UCLA Lab School, and it's truly a pleasure to be here and be part of the conversation on the future of assessment in education. I'd like to commend the work of the Gordon Commission in leading the national dialogue on assessment in education. Their report, findings, and recommendations will prove to be valuable in shaping how assessment will be conducted and how research and assessment can help to inform and improve teaching and learning. There's so much promise in the report, and as I thought about the report's significance, I thought I should share with you my perspective as a principal who has experience working in two very diverse settings. One being Para Los Niños Charter School, a school serving predominantly English language learners from the lowest rung of the socioeconomic levels. The school is located in downtown Los Angeles, and the other experience being a principal at UCLA Lab School. My perspective is informed by the work of the teachers with these diverse groups of students. All children are rich with potential of engaging in experiences that foster critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, communication, and creativity, all skills required for 21st century. The perspective I will share with you is focused on the child and the importance of research in creating assessments that ultimately help shape the next generation thinkers and leaders. As the Gordon Commission advocates, it is critical that as a nation we create a balanced approach to assessing our children. For 7 years, I've worked in a public school that was held accountable for its charter renewal based on an API that was calculated on test scores. Although the test did inform school-wide decisions, it did not inform the daily and weekly decisions that teachers must make to be responsive to the more immediate academic and social-emotional needs of their students. The test results were also not timely, as the test results would come in August after the school year was over. It is absolutely the right of children that we focus on a pedagogy that is fully responsive to our children, and assessment needs to be a part of that pedagogy. The Gordon Commission recognizes differences between assessment of educational outcomes and assessment or teaching and learning. The assessments of educational outcomes are important for the broader picture. As a principal, the summative assessments are helpful in making decisions towards school-wide goals. But it is time that we refocus on assessment for teaching and learning. From my perspective, this is the assessment that informs a teacher's daily practice and moves students forward in their trajectory toward the learning goals. The report of the Gordon Commission on the Future of Assessment in Education asserts that good assessments provide timely, constructive information that helps students accelerate their learning and help teachers personalize instruction. So let's examine these attributes of assessment for teaching and learning. Assessment needs to be timely. It's proximate to student learning. It has to be at the moment while learning is developing. Teachers gather evidence or data on learning at that moment, and the data informs immediate or near immediate teacher decisions. The assessments need to be based on current discussions, observations in class, either individually or in group, and the work that is being produced at that time toward the learning goal. The assessment is in the moment, at the end of the lesson, or in the next day. And in my view, based on years of experience, this is the assessment that moves learning. So let's take a look at an example of an assessment experience for teaching and learning that is timely. Teacher-student writing conferences. The teacher knows the individual student, his strengths and stretches, interests, and the learning goals. Previous notes and conferences inform the teacher. The conference is an opportunity to meet individually with a student to offer feedback on their writing and provide personalized instruction. These teacher-student conferences provide an opportunity to affirm what the student is doing well. And the teacher also gathers ideas for other mini lessons or small group strategy lessons based on student needs. Regularly scheduled teacher conferences inform instructional planning for the individual and also for the group. Assessment also provides constructive information. So that information is related to specific learning goals. It is evidence that provides substantive insights into student thinking, and it is very fine-grained. The evidence gathered enables feedback tailored for the individual. So the teacher's getting to know how the child thinks. This in turn provides the discerning teacher information that enables her to tailor feedback for the individual to work toward the learning goal and the specific learning goal for that child. In other words, the teacher is thinking of the learning and using information gathered from the student and sets the next steps toward the learning goal and communicates that directly to the child. So brainstorming and teacher feedback. In this particular slide, and in this particular class, which was a 5th grade class at Los Niños, students were engaged in writing persuasive essays on environmental issues that were important to them. There were no writing prompts, but the writing was based on their research and ownership of their topics. After researching their interests, they were poised to engage in the writing process to create a persuasive essay where argumentation and the use of evidence were a part of the learning goals. The whole class engaged in discourse on the environment and the importance of their role in inheriting the earth. This actual unit was prompted by a quote, a Native American quote about our responsibility in our inheritance of the earth. So what you see before you there is a slide that shows the feedback given by the teacher once the students selected possible solutions that they could use to build an argument. After a conference with the student, the teacher left her with a question: what is the connection between the 3 solutions you circled? What can your argument be? The teacher was scaffolding the student in formulating an argument while also responding to the interests of the child. So the teacher is also honoring her interest while working towards supporting her to create a coherent argument. Again, the teacher is making decisions in the moment to reach the desired learning goal, which in this case is argumentation supported by evidence. And you can see on the side of the student also wrote how they were very concerned, formulating why this was important to them. So the Gordon Commission also asserts that assessment is critical in helping students. So it's important that we support students in self and peer assessment. And this feedback then enables them to take action. It is critical that students understand how to monitor their own learning. In order to do so, students need to be supported in self-assessment and peer assessment. This type of assessment helps students to think about their own thinking in relation to the thinking of others, which then helps them to think even further and more deeply. The student begins to recognize their own strengths and stretches in learning. They learn how to give and receive feedback that in turn supports them in taking action. The learning is also internalized when a child gives feedback to others, as it is less emotionally charged because they are analyzing someone else's work. But this in turn helps them in their own self-assessment. Peer feedback can come in a variety of forms. In these pictures, you see students asking for feedback on a 3D model that shows their understanding of the parts and functions of a cactus. The student-written post-its and index cards that are attached to the model also reveal the student's understanding in a detailed way. The feedback given to the student by their peers can also be used as an assessment by the teacher. And you can see how, through these pictures, students were asking for other students to read their work. And of course, they wrote, some projects are very delicate because these are 3D models that they use with recycled materials. They didn't want other students to touch them because the models were delicate, yet they asked for feedback. And if you notice the star, it says, "Have a good time." I think that says a lot about the learning community, doesn't it? When children want to have feedback and are open to feedback from others, what a different kind of a learning environment, right? It is one which is much more democratic in its sense, that it states that we're a community of learners. So the Gordon Commission also asserts that good assessment supports teachers in personalizing learning, that tailoring instruction to individual needs is important, and actionable individual feedback is required. And it's also required to assist students in reflective learning. One of my mentors and former principal from UCLA Lab School, Margaret Heritage from Crest, calls this a responsive pedagogy and one that respects the child. It truly meets the child where the child is at and takes them to the next step, the desired learning goal. So if we think about the Vygotsky zone of proximal development, what the teacher needs to know is the student's current learning status. The teacher also needs to know where the learning goal is and understand the gap in between and the steps that are necessary to take the student to the next level and to help them reach the goal. How does this type of assessment impact students in developing critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity? Let's take a look at the potential of children to share their thinking and understanding in mathematics. So the video.
Yeah, it's like when you just are in a different shape. Yeah, you're mathematicians and the reference you first decompose them? Yeah. Like, so you want to decompose and then you go yeah. And then so when I did this one, I took a look at these tricks. It's a little bit different. You know what? I compose them, still using the same thing. Like, I was composing, still using the same. Because you can see how I first I actually added them together. So you kind of decompose them, you first decompose them together. Yeah, because see, if you compose first, there's a different number that you get to compose together, so it's harder. But if you decompose, you get different numbers that you compose, which makes it easier. But you have to choose what you decompose carefully, otherwise it can make it hard.
I'm sorry, this was transcribed, and the transcription for some reason didn't show up. I don't know why. But these are two students who are having mathematical discourse, which is part of the class, and actually based on the work from Dr. Megan Franke, cognitively guided instruction in mathematics. And the students are sharing their strategies and their thinking, and they had different strategies. But as you can see, they were listening to one another and discussing their strategies and giving each other, some feedback as well. And one of the students was able to say, well, the way in which I decompose the numbers was different because the other child composed the numbers or grouped them differently. And then what he said at the end, but how you choose the numbers that you're decomposing is very important, because if you choose some numbers, it will make it harder. And in other, if you choose a different set of numbers to decompose or decompose them differently, it'll make the problem easier. And so the other student says, that's a really good observation. Yeah. The discourse that took place could not have happened if the teacher had not created a classroom culture in which students were able to take risks as learners. And they felt comfortable to give and receive feedback with one another and also with their teachers. And I felt it was important to show this because really we need to focus and refocus assessment in this type of learning. As the Gordon Commission asserts, we need to engage in research that informs and improves teaching and learning. Assessments also need to be timely, provide constructive information that helps students accelerate their learning, and teachers personalize instruction. And I think the question really before us is, what kind of assessment can we research and develop that can create the kind of pedagogy that is truly responsive to all students? And I think it's truly an exciting time for assessment because of all of the technologies also that we have available before us. So I just want to again thank the Gordon Commission for their statements. Thank you.